Tonight on CBC Vancouver News, pollution concerns near Cultus Lake.
We know what compost smells like. This smells like hot garbage.
A BC company is slammed for dropping piles of business waste on a Fraser Valley farm. Some cases down, other cases up.
There's very good evidence that our vaccines are still providing strong protection from serious illness and death.
The latest on COVID, flu, and RSV in our province. And celebrating Black excellence in BC.
We deserve the acknowledgement that others get.
The local creation helping students find their voices.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away tonight. A Fraser Valley Organics company is under fire for unloading piles of business waste on a farm near Cultus Lake. Semi-trucks had been dropping off the material for months before the government ordered the company to stop. As John Hernandez reports, the waste is still there and neighbors are worried about their water supply.
I think our water is at risk. I think our air shed is at risk.
Darcy Henderson and her neighbors are baffled by what's on the other side of this blue fence.
Behind me is the illegal, unpermitted garbage dump that has been allowed to form at 810 Iverson Road.
The Columbia Valley residents have been dealing with trash blowing into their properties, harsh smells, and even smoke coming from these waste piles on a local farm.
And this does not smell like compost. We know what compost smells like. This smells like hot garbage.
The waste, which from a distance might look like compost, started getting dropped off in the spring. The company behind it, Fraser Valley Organics, said the plan was to process it on site and then apply it to the land.
We've taken all of this out. We were helping this farmer to increase the nutrient values and produce a more fertile crop for his cattle in years ahead.
The only problem, the material is so contaminated with plastic and other garbage that provincial inspectors have since classified it as business waste.
We have to have a foreign material percentage of less than 1, and we were over that.
The Ministry of Environment considers these piles to be illegal waste discharge. The violation can carry a $1 million fine and even jail time. A stop work order has been issued. The piles have been ordered to be covered to prevent runoff, but many are still exposed. Residents now fearing potential contamination to the local watershed.
We have got thousands of truckloads now. Estimates are 1,500 to 2,000 sitting right on top of our aquifer, and that's where we get our drinking water from in Cultus Lake.
The company and the ministry claim risks to the aquifer are minimal. Fraser Valley Organics now has to figure out how to get this waste into compliance. A penalty residents say amounts to a slap on the wrist.
This has turned into a massive industrial waste dump, and it just blows my mind. I wouldn't litter on the street. I'd get fined if I littered on the street.
A waste dump that will likely take many more months to clean up. John Hernandez, CBC News, Cultus Lake.
BC health officials are sounding cautiously optimistic about some respiratory illnesses in our province and concerned about others. While deaths from flu and COVID have dropped here, cases of the new Omicron subvariant are rising. Mira Baines has more on the impact to our exhausted healthcare system.
BC's top doctor says 24 new cases of the new COVID subvariant XBB 1.5 have been found here. While it's not the dominant strain in the province, it's spreading quickly in the U.S.
There is no evidence that this subvariant is causing more severe illness, and there's very good evidence that our vaccines are still providing strong protection from serious illness and death.
The BC Centre for Disease Control says data shows an overall decrease in the number of COVID-19 deaths over the past 2 months. 34 people died from the disease in the last week of 2022. About 300 people are hospitalized due to COVID. When it comes to influenza, Henry says cases have dropped across all age groups from the spike in late November. She says the dramatic rise was due to influenza A, which affects more people earlier in the flu season. They're now monitoring for influenza B.
So far, we've not seen a lot of it, but it does tend to happen later in the season, and it tends not to be as severe.
But RSV does remain high. Despite that, officials say they will not be mandating masks, instead urging people to get vaccinated. The province says emergency operations centers have been opened in 20 hospitals and non-urgent surgeries delayed.
Health authorities postponed 190 non-urgent scheduled surgeries.
116 have been cancelled in the Fraser Health region as respiratory illnesses strain health resources. And despite staffing shortages across the system, Henry says they do not plan to allow unvaccinated healthcare staff to return to work. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Chilliwack School District has taken a controversial step, hiring more than 4 dozen uncertified substitute teachers to cover their staffing shortages. The Chilliwack Teachers Association confirms 50 unqualified teachers have been hired since October, and it is the first district in the Lower Mainland to make such a move. According to the district, uncertified teachers come with a bachelor's degree or equivalent and must finish district-mandated training with a certified teacher. One MLA says, though, BC needs to do more to fill the gaps.
And I know it has parents concerned, and it is a concern. We have certification and qualifications of teachers for a reason, because they are specialists in dealing with children and delivering our curriculum, and we need to make sure that we continue to attract teachers who are certified into our system.
The BC Teachers Federation, meanwhile, says other Lower Mainland school districts may adopt a similar response to their own teacher shortages. Good news for Lower Mainland travelers looking to head south. Amtrak will add a second daily trip between Vancouver and Seattle, restoring the route to pre-pandemic service. Amtrak restarted one trip on the Vancouver-Seattle route last September and will add the second daily trip in early March. Pre-pandemic, more than 750,000 annual riders used that service, connecting BC to Washington State and Oregon for business and leisure. People wanting to travel to the west coast of Vancouver Island, meanwhile, will soon have a new option. It comes after Wilson's Transportation halted the Island Connector and Tofino bus services. Island Link Bus will now take over with a van service connecting Nanaimo to Tofino and Iqaluit. The new service will transport people 3 times a week, starting January 30th. The Vancouver Island First Nation is launching a ground survey to look for burial sites that predate colonization. And they're buying a Port Alberni school to do that job. The Hoopa-Chesset First Nation is buying Gill Elementary from School District 70. Human remains were already uncovered there before when the school expanded years ago. Those remains were returned to the Hoopa-Chesset, but they intend to conduct a survey to see if there are more.
I grew up as a kid, my elders would be like, don't play after dark, don't disturb it, don't kick that. You know, there was rules to it, and it was just like basically come to school, come home, then you'll be safe.
The Hoopa-Chesset have resided on the land for more than 6,000 years. The ground surveys are unrelated to recent discoveries at burial sites at residential schools across the country. For the First Nation, the school purchase is about reclaiming ancestral territory. As we told you last night, more Canadians are having to turn to food banks for help amid rising costs. Local charities and community groups are doing what they can to fill the gaps. But as Yasmin Gandam shows us, experts say charity is not a long-term solution.
This gives me a workout for the day.
It's almost more food than she can carry. But Michelle Reining and her team at Food Runners know it's just a start. The organization uses app technology to donate surplus food from local businesses to organizations throughout Vancouver.
We're seeing a real need across the city. Over 1 in 10 households are food insecure right now. So we're doing as much as we can.
Today's donation comes from the meal kit delivery service Fresh Prep, which began working with Food Runners just last year.
The less we throw away, the more we have, and the better we use it, the more there is for everyone.
Food Runners is a completely voluntary service that runs on donations. Last year, they donated over 700,000 pounds of food, but a lack of dedicated funding has them running thin.
Economically, as a country, it's not the best time to be fundraising at the moment, right? So yeah, it's not the easiest right now.
Before Fresh Prep was giving away their produce to organizations like Food Runners, it would end up in waste bins like this one and straight into the landfill. This food systems researcher tells CBC that while food insecurity typically affects racialized Canadians, the rising cost of inflation means more people are now turning to food banks and other charities for help.
People that go to food banks, many of them actually have multiple jobs. Universities are actually increasingly establishing food banks within their own campus.
Soma says more funding is needed to address the larger systemic issues that contribute to food insecurity. Last summer, Food Banks Canada reported that an estimated 7 million Canadians are eating less food than they would like because they simply can't afford it. For now, organizations like Food Runners will continue trying their best packing up boxes of food, knowing it's more than they alone can carry. Yasmin Kandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver City Council is set to vote next week on recommendations to revitalize Chinatown and the Granville Entertainment District. City staff have noted safety and public drunkenness concerns in both areas. The Chinatown Business Improvement Association says it wants to see less graffiti and more support for residents. The new plans could see higher taxes for the cleanup and safety improvements there. Proposed Granville Street changes include more diverse attractions to draw in visitors of all ages. The report also looked at the number of SROs on Granville Street and could see them replaced. Today, more than 32,000 students and educators from across the province are recognizing Black Excellence Day. As Janella Hamilton reports, the event held at Burn Creek Community School in Burnaby is a chance for youth to learn more about the contributions and achievements of Black Canadians in BC.
Facing the rising sun.
Musician Kari McClellan was among the guest speakers at the second annual Black Excellence Day, sharing words of empowerment through music,
Ring with the humble,
shedding light on past and present struggles of Black and racialized Canadians.
Here in Canada and in Vancouver, often it can feel invisible for Black people moving through the society.
As a 16-year-old Black Canadian, Luliana Ahaye says it's inspiring to be a part of an initiative that fights for more positive representation of her community and culture in the school curriculum.
We're not a race of people that are traumatized. We're a race of people who have ideas and passions.
Black Excellence Day was created by Vancouver's Ninandotu Society, proclaimed by the province on the Friday before Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday on January 15th. The society partnering with Burnaby School District once again this year to host the first ever in-person event at Burn Creek Community School, while thousands of others from across the province took part online.
This is a day about resilience, empowerment, and finding your voice and celebrating that strength.
Applewhite says Black Excellence Day is part of the school district's commitment to be more inclusive while giving students a platform to find their voice. Students like Kiana Edwards, who says she often faces racism in school from other classmates.
So there's a lot of low-key type of things, like comments and things that are said that sometimes are just not okay.
On this day, we celebrate the contributions of Black communities throughout BC.
It's important for us to come together as a community and just celebrate who we are as our authentic selves.
20 school districts across BC taking part in the event and beyond in Ontario and Nova Scotia.
Let us march on till victory.
Organizers say plans are in the works to recognize Black Excellence Day on a national level. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Burnaby.
When you think Scandinavian-style rest and relaxation, you likely picture anything but an old steamliner. One company is trying to change that, though. Haven Experiences has proposed a floating space for Victoria's Inner Harbor. Meetings were held about that idea earlier this week, and our cameras got a tour of the repurposed marine vessel. Take a look.
Hi, my name is Nick Van Buren. We're on the top deck of Haven. Downstairs, when you come in, there'll be a reception. There's a very small retail space. You come around the corner into a universal washroom, so guys and girls go in the same one, and then there's individual change stalls. So you change in there. And then when you come out of that, down the back, there's a sauna, some areas that we're going to future build out. There's a couple water features down there, and then you come up to the top deck, and up here we've got 3 saunas. Each one's a little bit different. So we've got a really hot pine sauna. There's a cedar one that's high humidity, a cedar one that's a little bit lower humidity. There's a space that's indoors, so if the weather's bad, you can just relax. And then there's a few cold pools, a few hot tubs, areas to sit outside. So you could be outside today, hanging out outdoors, enjoying a sauna, enjoying the sun and then the view. And if it's raining, you can still be outside year round. So it's just a space to come and enjoy. All the edges are actually garden planters. There's 12 or 15 trees going on the top deck, lots of grasses. We want it to look like a garden. So it's a very unique vessel. There was only 6 of them made in 1943. So World War II, they made them in Tacoma, near Seattle. It has a bow, so it has a very ship-like aesthetic, but there's no propulsion. We are just floating like a barge. Well, the hull is black, the house on it is gray, and then the buildings will be the wood with the greenery. We're gonna do some pattern, a little bit of a light mural on the side, so it'll have that dark aesthetic, but we're gonna liven it up. I think having people come down to the inner harbor to places like Ships Point is a good thing. We've got this great waterfront. It doesn't really get used 6-8 months of the year. You know, if we can use a spot that really right now is just used for private boat mooring, and people can come down and they can patronize us, great. We're bringing some vibrancy to the area, and that's something that's clearly desired. So you'll be able to see the Empress and Parliament and the harbor entrance, and how it can hopefully be a spark that starts that transition to converting the Ships Point parking lot into the Ships Point waterfront park that's been envisioned.
BC snow sport enthusiasts usually have several months to enjoy the slopes, but recent wet weather has gotten in the way. The CBC's Michelle Gassoub has been keeping an eye on the hills, joins us now. Michelle, what should people hoping to hit the mountains this weekend know right now?
Dan, it's not the best news for skiers and boarders. Rain, snowfall, and avalanche warnings are in effect across the province, and that's preventing people from spending time on the mountains. A combination of high winds, up to 15 centimeters of snow, and heavy rain in lower elevations are creating difficult, even dangerous conditions. Cypress Mountain has closed most of its advanced Black Diamond runs, while Whistler Blackcomb has closed some of its most popular lifts, including Peak Express, Symphony Express, and Crystal Ridge Express. So skiers and snowboarders unable to access a large part of the mountain. Sasquatch Mountain Resort also not allowing night skiing and has closed multiple chairlifts, runs, and areas meant for beginners. And while conditions are expected to improve into next week, many mountains are simply on standby with no guarantee when things will fully reopen.
Due to the extreme weather conditions in the Alpine that are affecting these runs, we want to make sure that the public, that our guests at the mountain are as safe as possible and can enjoy the mountain safely and without any concern.
It's a little bit challenging with the rain and the weather that it is right now. It's kind of thick, kind of heavy, a little bit more difficult to stop and cut and everything, but it's still beautiful. I still love it up here.
A little wetter. When you get into the lower area, though, it's kind of slushy. So you're skiing through it, you kind of hit brakes almost.
Well, we know lots of people enjoy hiking through backcountry trails if they can't go skiing or boarding. Michelle, how is the weather affecting those plans?
Well, the messaging right now is don't go. The rapid changes to snow on the ground, the freezing and melting cycles, and the varying precipitation can easily cause avalanches, both naturally occurring and human-caused. Now, unlike ski resorts, the backcountry is not serviced by patrol teams or snow-growing machines that maintain the snow, and that means that surfaces that may appear safe can give way to crumbling snow. So, if you do choose to head out despite the weather, officials are warning to be prepared.
Do you have an avalanche probe? Do you have a shovel? Do you have warm clothes? Because if it took you 7 hours to get where you are, a good chance it's going to take us 7 hours to get there as well.
Lots of safety tips to keep in mind if you are still considering heading out this weekend. Dan?
Michelle Gassoub reporting live. Thanks very much. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, first of all, snowpack. Where are we at with that?
Yes, as Michelle said, it is the quality of snow, but it's also quantity of snow that's leading to a lot of concerns on the local mountains and right across the province. I want to show you the latest snowpack indices. So this is from the BC River Forecast Center. This was taken January 10th, so just a couple of days ago. All the areas you see in brown, that's below seasonal for snowpack. So we are well above in the Lower Thompson and the Okanagan, but here on the South Coast and on the island, we're actually 60 to 70% of seasonal snowpack for this time of the year. So to think about it another way, we are 30 to 40% below our seasonal snowpack. And you can see that trend is pretty much the story right across the province with the exception of the interior. And that's surprising given the great start we had to the year. That La Nina kickoff meant we had well above seasonal snowpack to start the winter, but all of these atmospheric rivers, these mild melts, I mean, our snow level right now is around 1,000, meaning the tops of the locals, 1,000 meters, are getting rain instead of snow. And I don't really see a change to that pattern. What I do see for this weekend, though, is a bit of a break from this latest atmospheric river. And as I show you this radar screen right now, if you look off the west side of the island, you can see clearing. That is the end in sight. Now, we do have to get through a few more rounds. As I've been standing out here in the North Shore, we've been seeing pockets of showers come down heavy at times. So I'm going to say another 10 to 20 millimeters for the North Shore and the west side of the island through the overnight and tomorrow morning. But Dan, I'm happy that one sunny break will line up with a Saturday afternoon, and that's something.
And you're going to tell us more later on.
I'll be back.
Please do. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
To other news now, the World Irish Dancing Championships are coming to Montreal this April. It's only the second time the competition is being held in Canada. Turns out some dancers from Steele School of Irish Dance in Surrey are among the performers. We caught up with them.
Steele School has 9 dancers qualified for the World Championships taking place in Montreal in April. This is like the Olympics of Irish dancing. It's incredible to watch these girls go off to Montreal and achieve the highest level of Irish dance. It makes me so proud to be a part of their journey and watch them grow up through this.
I started Irish dancing when I was 6, so I've been dancing for about 16 years. Being up there with your friends and enjoying yourself it's not something that you find in other sports or other things where everything is about competition and your team versus this team, and we're not always that's a competition. It's just performing and having fun. When I found out that I qualified, I was just ecstatic. I've had a lot of injuries in the last couple years, and it's been a little bit uncertain of whether or not I would be able to keep competing or keep dancing at all. So it was just, I was shocked, and I was so happy to get to go back and compete again.
I started dancing Irish dance when I was 3 or 4. It's fun to dance with your friends and dance with other people. I'm preparing for the World Championships by practicing and working really hard. It's really a lot of fun because you're always playing with your friends at the competitions, running around watching everyone from your school.
I watched these kids when they were 6 and just starting to dance, and now we're all going to the World Championships together, and it's really exciting, and I'm just honored to be part of that.
Better than river dance. Good luck to them. In Richmond today, a triumphant return. Aberdeen Centre Mall is welcoming customers into its annual Lunar New Year celebration. It's a long-running local tradition, but one that's been cut back by the pandemic. Today, though, the mall is welcoming people back for the familiar festivities. And among them, Liam Britton there to take it in. Liam, what's going on in the mall right now?
Well, Dan, I'm here with one of the vendors here at Aberdeen. You can see they're selling red lanterns, lucky banners. There's some sweet boxes here. There's a lot of culturally relevant stuff going on here at Aberdeen Mall for the next 10 days. Lion and dragon dancing, a flower market, fun vendors, and of course, plenty of sweets. So festivities on here for 10 days. Organizers say this is the biggest indoor Lunar New Year event in Metro Vancouver, and it's been going on since 1989.
Now, for the past 2 years, though, as we've mentioned, this is where they haven't been able to host it, and it's been a virtual event. What's that been like?
Yeah, it's been curtailed pretty heavily for the past 2 years. Obviously, you don't want to have people crowding in a mall in an indoor space. I spoke with mall manager Tiffany Ho about what it's like to be back as usual.
We're so excited. The long-awaited events, because it's the most popular festival of the year. So then we have the countdown show, and then we'll have the gift fair show here starting today and lasts for 10 days. And on the New Year Day, we have the lion and the dragon dance celebration. So we'll last more than 10 days events till January the 29th.
So lots going on there. Liam, we saw it earlier in some of the footage. Have you already tucked into the Lunar New Year suites? Be honest.
Dan, I've been a very good boy so far, although I will say I don't think this very special Year of the Rabbit macaron is going to last much longer. Dan?
Nicely done, Liam. Please bring back some for the rest of us. Liam Britton in Richmond tonight. She wanted unpaid wages and severance pay, but a BC accountant wound up with a bill for more than $2,500. That's after a tribunal decided she had committed time theft. Up next, a labor lawyer with more on the ruling's impact. Stay with. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Good to have you here. A new report suggests private telemedicine services in Quebec are rapidly draining resources from the public healthcare system. And the report's authors say the province needs to tighten the rules. Steve Rukavina has more.
The report from l'Institut de Recherche et d'Information Socio-Économique, or IRIS, says use of telemedicine increased dramatically during the pandemic, but not just in the public system. Businesses and insurance companies started hiring private telemedicine providers to do consultations for employees. IRIS says some companies saw their revenues quintuple in the last 2 years. The lead researcher says that comes at a price for the public system.
On a déjà de la difficulté à recruter et à avoir une rétention de personnel dans le secteur public. Si on a des entreprises privées à but lucratif qui viennent recruter le personnel, ben, ça diminue en fait la disponibilité de ce personnel-là pour travailler dans le secteur public.
Not only that, but IRIS says the province is actually subsidizing many of the largest private telemedicine companies through loans and investments worth millions. And a loophole in the regulations for telemedicine allows doctors who work in the public system to do private telemedicine work on the side. IRIS says the loans to private companies should stop and the loophole should be closed. The province says it is closing that loophole. A spokesperson for the health minister responded in an email saying, telemedicine has existed for several years in the private sector, and we've just created a framework with a regulation that came into force January 1st. We have also had several discussions recently with medical federations to maintain and improve access to telehealth in our public network.
I want to go over your results by phone.
But IRIS says there's nothing in the new rules to stop telemedicine companies from recruiting nurses and other health professionals away from the public system, and that the government continues to subsidize the companies that are doing that. Steve Rukavina, CBC News, Montreal.
A BC accountant has been ordered to pay her former employer just over $2,600 after the Civil Resolution Tribunal determined she had committed time theft. The accountant had initially filed a claim for $5,000 to cover unpaid wages and severance pay. She argued she was fired without cause last March. The tribunal, however, found she'd claimed more than 50 hours of labor that the company said she never actually worked. Ex-employer Reach CPA Incorporated had installed a tracking software on her laptop after a performance review. The accountant, who worked from home, said she couldn't explain the difference as she did not fully understand how the software worked. Now, for more on this ruling and its implications, we're joined live by lawyer Brandon Hillis, a partner at Roper Grail. Brandon specializes in labor, employment, and human rights law in the workplace. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here.
Tell us, first of all, what are the implications of this case around, for example, this tracking software?
Well, it's an interesting one, as I'm sure you can imagine. Employee monitoring programs or software, whether it's a tracking software in a computer or a GPS in a work truck, there are a lot of underlying dynamics that go into whether or not that kind of tracking software is permissible. Mm-hmm. Of course, you've got to consider things like notice to employees, the reasonableness of what you're doing generally, the kind of information you're tracking, and the reasons why you're tracking that information. Now, in this case, they didn't really go into any of the detail in that. It was just accepted that there was this tracking software program that got put into place shortly after this employee met with her employer to talk about concerns with her own productivity.
Mm-hmm. Now, we know you mentioned the permissibility of the program. Another issue is how accurate it may be. What about that? How does that factor in?
I think that would, again, and this was a very brief, or the reasons in this case were very, very brief, so they didn't dive into the accuracy of that tracking software. I think if I were running a case on behalf of the employer there, that's something that I would very much want to know, is how accurate is this? What are the other kinds of considerations? What kind of things might an employee be doing that is considered work that may not be recorded in the tracking software? But of course, in this case, the employee, prior to her employment being terminated, she ultimately admitted to improperly recording time on the program. Mm-hmm. So that's a big factor in that case.
Now, we know that this is a civil resolution tribunal. It's not a higher court, Supreme Court, provincial court. What would you say as an expert on these kind of matters, want someone to understand about this story and whether or not it sets any precedent?
I think the precedential value that it sets is going to be on the lower end, to put it gently. It is a civil resolution tribunal. It's not a superior court or an arbitrator dealing with a labor arbitration. So I don't think it's going to create precedent that decision makers elsewhere are going to feel bound to adhere to. But it's also, as with any kind of case, it's going to be so fact dependent. And in this case, there were really elements of the individual's conduct that I think go beyond just simple time theft, right? This is an employee who recorded 57 hours, something along those lines, of time onto client files that she didn't work. Mm-hmm. And so that's not a situation of an employee who is spending a few extra minutes at the water cooler or checking their phone during business hours. Mm-hmm.
Brandon Hillis, we appreciate your time, and certainly this story has a lot of people talking. We appreciate your perspective.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Sticking on the labor front now, starting this year, thousands of federally regulated workers will have access to 10 guaranteed paid sick days. Ottawa's legislation, though, does not cover all Canadian workers, which means most businesses aren't required to offer them. As Anise Sadario explains, some experts say a sick leave law can ultimately be good for business.
The biggest concern at this Calgary faucet factory is keeping the machinery working, not the staff. They can call in sick. Jace Staples works on the production line.
Nobody comes to work sick around here because we all have that peace of mind that you can take the day off and get better.
Staples didn't have this benefit at his previous jobs.
It was definitely a huge perk. It wasn't something that I was used to.
Ottawa's law on paid sick leave doesn't apply to Alberta factories like this one. Tapmaster does it anyway.
We started offering it because people need time off, and if they're sick, they're not super productive at work anyways.
Paid sick days don't cost Tapmaster much, but that's not always the case.
We are a trades business, goods and service, and when people call in sick, their clients don't come in. The business does lose that revenue.
For some businesses, like this hair salon, a sick call is expensive. Dana Lysing already pays for sick days due to BC law. She says the government shouldn't just legislate sick time, it should pay, because it costs her business tens of thousands of dollars.
I believe in these sick days, but I also believe that the government already has this money. They are collecting employment insurance from employees and employers on every payroll.
Regardless of who pays, most workers in Canada don't have guaranteed sick days. The new federal law applies to less than 1 million employees in industries like banking, transportation, or communications. This expert says paid sick leave should be legislated everywhere.
It improves their own health, it supports their family, and for businesses, it does support better health within your workplace and your business.
It also keeps illness from spreading at work.
Small company like ours, we only have 10 employees. If 4 or 5 people are gone sick, then we're pretty much stuck.
So for this business, the cost of sick leave is a good investment. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
We try to inform them step by step what we are doing.
3 people are still missing after that massive explosion north of Montreal. The blast that rocked a propane outlet and the search for workers not seen since yesterday is coming up.
A lot of people have the same resolution this time of year. Get fit, start jogging, lose some weight. Well, there's more to losing weight than just jogging. You have to eat right and you have to shop right. I'm going shopping with Ramona Josephson. She's a nutritionist who has just written a book on a different way to fill your shopping cart.
Carrots are one of the foods in the top 2 bands of Canada's food guide. And these are the ones that we should be eating in the most abundance. So what you want to do is to load up this large part of your cart with all those foods from the top 2 food groups. Here's
Okay,
the
so
carrots.
Carrots are one. That's make a stir fry tonight. Sound like a good idea?
Sounds like a great
All right,
idea.
So we need probably some green peppers.
Okay.
As well, if you've got a bag for those. And let's see, if I can afford it, I'm going to get maybe 1 red pepper.
Yeah, one will be good just for the color.
For some color, yeah. We'll throw that in there. And despite George Bush saying that he doesn't like broccoli, I do like broccoli. And I hear that it's really good for you for a number of reasons. So we'll just throw the broccoli in there. I wanted to do a chicken stir fry tonight. There's many different cuts of chicken here. What about something like these chicken thighs?
Well, chicken is a great idea, but the cut that you choose makes a big difference to your fat budget. This has got skin, and the thigh is not your best cut. Try chicken breast without the skin.
This is Jasmine Halal Meats and Deli on Main Street in Vancouver.
Ramadan Mubarak. Bye-bye. Have you been helped?
Many Middle Eastern Muslims buy their meats, nuts, and dried foods here. They also shop here for foods used to break their daily fast during Ramadan, the holiest month of the Islamic calendar. Deli owner Musa Mahaila says fasting is a universal way of focusing your inner self.
All the religion, whether Christianity, Judaism, all of them emphasize on fasting because it purifies the soul. It's purified. The same as we managing our outside body. So we need to take a look our deep inside our soul.
Musa, you're from Lebanon originally, and you've got some Lebanese foods here you use to break the fast as well.
Yes, today I brought some variety of food. Tabbouleh is very well known, and you know what's made of?
Parsley and tomatoes and lemon.
Okay, this is grape leaves. It's made out of grape leaves, onion, and rice and tomatoes. This is a spinach pie. Spinach pie, you ate from it last year. It is made out of spinach, onion, and
lemon juice.
Lemon juice.
Yeah, very tasty.
And this is meat pie. It is made out of tomato, onion, and meat.
Mm-hmm. And this is a dessert?
And this is a dessert, kataif you call. It's a cream. The sheet is like a pancake sheet, and it is a cream and pistachio, and will be a
syrup on top.
Sugar syrup on top.
And how long does Ramadan last until?
Until January 28th.
Okay, happy Ramadan.
Thank you very much.
And that's Pacific Palate for this week.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Quebec authorities remain at the scene of an explosion and fire north of Montreal. As the CBC's Valeria Correa-Minocchio reports, the blast destroyed much of a Quebec propane distribution company yesterday.
We're about 100 meters away from where the explosion and fire happened Thursday morning. Provincial police are still on the scene here, continuing their investigation. They say that the event seems to have been accidental in nature and not criminal. Police also told us that they've been in contact with the family members of the 3 people who are still missing. Right now, they are not ready to reveal any information about their identities.
We are in contact with the families of the victims. We offered assistance, and we are very concerned about all the questions they could have, and we try to inform them step by step what we are doing every day.
This explosion has rocked this small community. Earlier today, the mayor of Saint-Roch-de-L'Achigan was visibly emotional as he thanked Quebecers for their support and words of encouragement. We also heard from the family who owns the fuel distributor. They say that 2 of the 3 missing people were employees and the other was a subcontractor.
This is our family's company. I would like to give my sincere sympathies to the families of the victims who are still missing. This is an extremely difficult day for us. It's a first in 67 years.
Quebec Provincial Police say the investigation is expected to take a few days. They're working with firefighters as well. They say that it's a complicated scene and elements like the snow that's been falling here do make things more challenging. Valeria Correa-Minocchio, CBC News, Saint-Roch-de-L'Achigan.
By most measures, Canadians pay the highest cell phone rates in the world. The latest marketplace investigation looks into why. And as David Common shows us, there are barriers that are limiting more competition.
Canada has among the highest wireless rates in the world, more than Australia, France, and Ireland, where we asked users to carry out identical tasks.
I'm going to get you to open the YouTube app on your phone.
Comparing costs to what global consulting firm Rewheel calculates as the data rate for each nation.
So the YouTube download for the average cell phone user in Australia?
17 cents to do that, but in Canada, $1.03.
Whoa, that's just such a big difference. Yeah. That's wild.
That's huge.
Yes,
Huge.
Humongous.
Canada's wireless companies say the country is vast, infrastructure therefore expensive. But Australia is also big, sparsely populated in areas, and yet way cheaper.
I don't even bat an eye if I'm on or off Wi-Fi, like it doesn't matter.
Canada's rules favor providers with their own infrastructure, making it very expensive for new competitors to start up. Entrepreneur Anthony Lacavera tried creating Win Mobile and building his own towers because the big 3, he says, made it very hard to lease space on theirs.
We're allowing these oligopolies to continue to function and to consolidate even further. But we can't fault them for that. We have to have the government step in and fix this once and for all.
The wireless industry points out prices have gone down recently and argues there is competition between Bell, Rogers, and TELUS. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
And tonight, Marketplace puts the big 3 phone companies, Bell, Rogers, and TELUS, to the test by setting up their own call center of Canadians to find who gets the best deal. You'll want to see this. Tune into The People versus the Phone Giants tonight at 8 p.m. on CBC Television. After being hit by wave after wave of atmospheric rivers, California is bracing yet again for more. Stick around.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
People in parts of California are again on high alert tonight, bracing for a weekend of flood threats and more stormy weather. The state has been hit by wave after wave of atmospheric rivers, and as Susanna De Silva shows us, another one is in the forecast.
The wind, the rain, the waves, back to wreak more destruction on California's coast. As crews try to clean up what hasn't washed away, in Capitola, popular with locals and tourists, it's the locals that have come to survey the damage and what's approaching.
We've been married for 25 years. We spent a lot of dates walking out on that wharf, so it's central to our community. It's an iconic central point for our community.
Today we are still cleaning up and tearing down or pulling up all the hardwood.
Jill Ely is still cleaning up her restaurant after the last storm, after a piece of that wharf came through the wall.
Full waves were coming through the restaurant because all the glass was broken and the wall was gone.
Every day she loses money, and with more storms arriving, she has no real timeline to open up.
We're not going to start the wall, and we just keep boarded up and pray, really.
This was the bridge.
Further south, it's the same story.
That's the thing that's given us the biggest issue now.
Soren Coates lives further inland. His community is struggling to clean up, let alone prepare again.
I lost a good portion of my bottom part of my property. The bank went down into the creek. And for the community of 32 homes, we lost the bridge that accesses the entire community.
They have found a way in through a gate in another community, but that is at risk of flooding too. They're using chainsaws and equipment to clear debris and protect that bridge themselves.
Devastating. I mean, there's nothing you can do to protect yourself from this.
Meanwhile, the Salinas River continues to flood the area with the water that fell earlier this week, a problem that isn't going to go away soon. 7 areas expected to hit flood stage in the next week.
We tend to think things are okay because we're halfway through this and maybe it hasn't impacted me. Remain focused on the safety tips that we've given you.
The CBC's Susanna De Silva reporting from California. Rescuers are searching for survivors a day after a massive storm system ripped through several southern U.S. states, spawning dozens of tornadoes. At least 9 people have been killed in Alabama and Georgia, and officials expect that number to climb. The twisters left widespread wreckage behind across parts of Alabama. Hundreds of homes were destroyed or seriously damaged, roofs ripped off, trees uprooted. Strong winds knocked out power for tens of thousands of people as well. At least 35 possible twisters touched down across several states. Substantial damage is being reported in Selma. These images capture the moment one of the twisters barreled into the historic city. Alabama, where the majority of deaths occurred, declared a state of emergency in hard-hit counties. Let's bring back meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe, joins us now with the forecast. Joe, scary images to see and what's happening, I guess, there, and then perhaps what's happening here.
Yes, Dan, that system, that was the tail end of a cold front that's right now slicing through Atlantic Canada, bringing very different weather. Everything but the kitchen sink, basically. Parts of New Brunswick could see 50 centimeters, but that just gives you a sense of the size of that storm that spawned those tornadoes last night. That's going to slowly make its way out to Atlantic Canada. Here, we're dealing with the tail end of a system as well, the tail end of that atmospheric river. And I'm just starting to feel the raindrops return. We're going to see more rain tonight. Let me show you what this looks like on the radar. We're in a bit of a break across Metro Vancouver right now, but you can see heavier rain in that dark green and yellow just moving across the island. In Nanaimo, you're getting a good downpour right now, and that is what's headed our way in the next hour. So Metro Vancouver, we're not out of the woods when it comes to rain tonight. We could pick up that extra 10 to 20 millimeters. It's mild, 10 right now in White Rock, 11 for YVR, 10 over towards Nanaimo. All temperatures a good 3 to 4 degrees above seasonal thanks to this southwesterly flow. And that flow is going to kick in one more system. So the bulk of that atmospheric river sinking down across central and southern California over the weekend, as Susie mentioned. The center of that low is actually going to be our story for Sunday. So we get that break that we'll be looking forward to tomorrow afternoon with some sunshine. And then that next system for Sunday is another rainmaker. It's not going to bring a lot of mountain snow, but a lot of rain to the south coast. I'm thinking another perhaps 20 to 40 millimeters. Looking for some sunshine right across the interior for our break day tomorrow. Prince George, you'll see some flurries in the morning, hoping for some sunshine in the afternoon. Same story to the Kootenays. I know you've mainly got that snow icon, but I'm hoping for some sunny breaks as we head into the afternoon. Okanagan, there's a chance. Kelowna, I know it'd be nice to see that sunshine. And Prince Rupert, I'm not guaranteeing any sunshine for you, but drier second half of the day. The pretty mixed bag as we head into the week ahead. I think we'll find some sunny breaks. These may change, though, Dan. Subject to change, I think we say. But I can guarantee the Saturday, Sunday sort of pattern, and then we'll have to kind of play it day by day. There's a lot going on, cooling in the forecast, but a lot of everything.
I was going to say this is like the ultimate variety pack. So we're kind of used to
is.
that, you know.
It's that time of the year where it's something for everyone.
No kidding.
Choose your poison.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Joe, you got to stick around for this. Back here in BC, cross-country skiers are being warned about an angry great horned owl in and around Kamloops. The ornery bird is patrolling trails around Stake Lake. Since Wednesday, 4 people have received minor injuries at the hands of the rambunctious raptor, talons, I should say. 1 person had to go to hospital to get a tetanus shot. The Overlanders Ski Club is now recommending people ski in groups and avoid several trails at night. WildSafe BC says the great horned owl may be nesting, and that's why it's swooping people.
We want bagels! We want bagels!
Well, who doesn't? Coming up, why people in Montreal are lining up to get a fresh pair of bagels. We'll explain.
Long before the Bluenose schooner gilded its name in history, there was the Flying Bluenose, a luxury train that sped through Nova Scotia's countryside at a time when steel and coal powered the largest and the fastest. An 8-hour journey of grandeur and style, seats filled with romantics intoxicated by a famous tale of lost love. The Flying Bluenose is memorialized in postcards and travel brochures from a bygone era, but it is remembered by a select few.
I'm not sure to what extent people have been told the story. I think the Flying Bluenose is still recognized as a pretty significant sort of jewel in the crown of that time.
Evangeline, A Tale of Acadie, ignited imaginations all over the world when it was published in 1847. It went through 6 reprints in 6 months and was translated into 12 languages. It tells the story of a woman, Evangeline, as she searches for her love Gabriel at the time of the expulsion of the Acadians from Nova Scotia. The characters were fiction, but the setting was very much real. Starting in 1755, the British forced Acadian communities out of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. They were deported south to colonies along the eastern seaboard of the United States. A little over a century later, the rail service connecting Halifax to Annapolis Royal was finished. It was folded into the Dominion Atlantic Railway. 2 operating locomotives were given the names Evangeline and Gabriel. Tourists from the United States could board steamers in Boston and disembark in the port of Yarmouth. Stepping foot in Nova Scotia, they would experience tight integration with the rail system. Their 2 options were either the regular train, which was slower and had more stops. Then there was the Flying Bluenose.
First of all, the outside of them was this incredible magenta color. And then if you went inside, what you would find is carpeting that was made by the most exclusive company in England, which back then had been in business for a couple of 100 years and still going now. The paneling inside was stunning. Buffet parlors, salon coaches, and people could sit out on the back of the train on an observation deck and watch the scenery go by.
The Flying Bluenose continued for a time. But the Great Depression and the construction of highways were the beginning of a transition away from the steam and coal-powered vessels of that era. The world changed. The Flying Bluenose was retired in 1936, but it and the line on which it and other trains ran had made an indelible mark on Nova Scotia and beyond. What has remained is the love of Evangeline.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Ring in the Year of the Rabbit with CBC Vancouver at the annual Chinatown Spring Festival Parade on Sunday, January 22nd. Join us along the parade route and celebrate the Lunar New Year with fun and festivities for the whole family. Enjoy traditional lion and dragon dances, marching bands, and martial arts performances. Learn more at cbc.ca/bc.
Nike is paying tribute to a Canadian city inspired by one of its signature delights. The Montreal bagel sneaker in carb lover colors went on sale today in a downtown boutique, and people lined up to get them while they were hot. Kwabina Oduro has more on the excitement.
There's nothing better than a Montreal bagel right out of the oven, except maybe being one of the first to get your hands on this, Nike's Dunk Low Montreal bagel.
I'm new to Montreal. I love food, and I think that's an awesome collab.
We want bagels! We want bagels!
This morning on St. Catherine Street, the lineup outside the shop with the exclusive early launch stretched around the corner. Some lined up here as early as Thursday afternoon, waiting to get their hands on a pair.
You know, the fact that they're doing a Montreal-inspired shoe, when are you going to ever see that again, you know? So I think everybody's just on the same page, you know?
The box is the city on it, the artwork, it's a cool box. You know what, there's not many shoes out there that have your city on it, so it's kind of, it's interesting to have your city represented by such a big company.
The shoe is beige with sesame seed graphics and a blue swoosh the company says pays tribute to La Belle Province. Or is it the company weighing in on the eternal debate? Is it St. Viateur or Fairmount? I'm going to ask some people right now. What does it represent?
It's got to be St. Viateur.
Quebec.
La Belle Province, Quebec.
Yeah, Quebec too. I'm gonna say Quebec.
Once you grab your pair of shoes, you like them, you want to take them home, you can come right over here, grab a bagel and eat it. And the bagel smells just like the shoes.
No, I'm not going to eat the shoe. I'm going to eat the bagels with the shoe, you know? I'm going to wear the shoes, I'm going to eat bagels with them.
Not everyone plans to wear them.
And we're super stoked about the shoes because I'm sure it's going to make me a millionaire someday. They're going to go up in value so much. Going to sell them, pay the debt and everything.
The shoes are already being resold for nearly double the price, but others couldn't wait. When are you going to wear the shoes?
Right away.
In the snow?
In the snow.
Damn. You're going to damage the shoe.
It is what it is, bro.
Kwabina Oduro, CBC News, Montreal.
I'd rather have the bagel. Thanks for joining us on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can catch us on CBC Gem, the free app, as well as YouTube, Instagram, and the website, cbc.ca/bc. Michelle Gassoub will have your late local news at 11 p.m. right after the National, so please tune in before you turn in. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.